The Medium was developed and published by the developer Bloober Team, whose last game was Blair Witch. And this is a psychological horror game that was released exclusively for the Xbox Series X and is also available on PC, which is the platform that I played the game on. And The Medium follows the story of Marianne, who is a medium. She's basically a clairvoyant that can travel to what's known as a spirit world and interact with the dead and help, the spirits or the lost souls of the dead pass on. And she's encountered the supernatural and has been a part of that world ever since an early age, basically since early childhood. And this game places a heavy emphasis on narrative. It's tightly scripted. There's no dialogue options, so it's not like Heavy Rain or Until Dawn or Man of Medan or Beyond Two Souls. It's not anything like that. There's no dialogue options. It's just the story itself that you follow. Yeah, it's pretty much a one and done experience. After you beat it, there's nothing to do really. There's no reason to go back and replay it unless you're just an avid trophy or an achievement enthusiast. There's no chapter select even after you beat the game. You can't just jump to random parts in the game that you enjoyed, which is a very strange choice. It just makes it seem like this game was really meant to be like a launch title for the Xbox Series X, but got delayed. It's a very it's very strange for me to talk about this game because it's hard to say whether or not I actually like this game. Certainly, there were parts about the game that I did enjoy. There were things about the game that I did appreciate where I went, "Oh, okay, that was a bit clever," or "I like the way they did this particular sequence," or "I like this part, this specific level or this specific section of the story." There were definitely parts, times throughout my playthrough where, I had that reaction. But for the most part, my reaction to this was pretty empty, I guess is the best word that I can use. There's just not a whole lot that's going on with this game, specifically gameplay wise, and I'm going to get to that in a second. But even with the story, there is a deeper narrative going on here, but it's pretty cliche, and none of the characters, including the main character Marianne herself, is interesting. A lot of them are pretty much boring. Most of the characters that you encounter in the game. The most interesting character that they have in this game is a character called Sadness, which is one of the spirits that's presented in the form of a little girl that wears a mask that accompanies Marianne on her journey here and there throughout the game. At random times, she'll pop up, and you do learn more about that character and her backstory and everything. Unfortunately, the other characters that are in the game are just boring. They're not interesting. They never have anything unique or intelligent to say, really. Marianne herself has this personal narration thing that she does, where you'll examine objects in the environment, and she'll have like a thought about that object in her head or whatever. But it's presented in the form of a voiceover that has on-screen subtitles and everything and whatnot. That's not something that's new. It's actually something that's pretty cliche. There was nothing about it that where I was like, okay, that was a creative thought. I didn't care what Marianne was really saying throughout this entire game. Like, she never had anything remotely of interest for me to invest in. And so she just came off as very boring. Not necessarily unlikable, but definitely boring. There's a lot of been there, done that with this game regarding its story and its characters, which is a shame because that is pretty much the entire game. It's so heavily focused on narrative, so much to the point that the gameplay really takes a back seat, And as a whole, the game suffers because it just does not place any sort of focus on actual gameplay. The gameplay is presented as a walking simulator where you just walk the fuck around or you just jog in place at a very slow pace. You just go through these hallway or corridor like environments, and here and there you'll come across an object that you can pick up. There's some very light puzzle solving, but the puzzles are so easy to the point where you're pretty much insulted because the game just seems to treat you like you're a child. There's no faith from the game developers, where I felt that they actually thought of me as being more intelligent than what they perceived me to be. When it came to the puzzle solving, the puzzles are extremely easy. There's nothing that's remotely fun about some of the puzzles that are in the game, and even some of the later levels. Some of the later sections in the game that where I was like, okay, this is an interesting spot here. I'm wondering what they're going to do with this. The gameplay never changes. It still remains pretty much the same. My favorite section in the game was when you take control of a character's spirit. You're going through this level. It has a red backdrop, and it looks like a big giant city, but the buildings are like in the form of bookshelves, bookcases. I thought that was excellent, art direction and everything. But again, because the gameplay is so simplified, you really don't care about anything that, any of the few sections in the game that's actually eye catching like that. The effect wears off pretty quickly. Gameplay wise, there was nothing special about this game. There is a creature or whatever, because once again, this is a psychological horror game. Here and there throughout the game, there are these scripted sections where there's this creature. It looks like a demon or whatever, and it doesn't really have, like, half of its head is gone, and it has like these wings. It has like a dual personality or whatever, where it talks to itself. And there are a few chase sequences with that creature, but they're very far few and in between. And every time you encounter that creature in the game, most of the encounters are stealth, scripted stealth sections, and it's very easy to basically get through those sections of the game to the point where the horror aspect actually loses all of its tension. The effect of that, quickly wears off because you realize the creature's not really a threat because of how easy the game itself is. There's no difficulty options. Once you start the game or once you finish the game, there's no hard mode or anything like that. There's no combat at all. The puzzle solving, as I explained earlier, is too easy. It's too simple. There's no, post game content or anything. No reason to go back and replay the game again. No reason to stay invested once you finish the game. And the first hour of this game was like, it was a slog. I was sitting there wondering, like, if I had literally wasted my money purchasing this game in the first place because of just how slow the pacing is in the beginning. It does pick up, but it takes too long to actually pick up for a game that has very little interaction. This is the type of game where it's like, it's a walking simulator. It's a horror game, but it's not a very good horror game. As a puzzle solving game, it's not really good in that department either. There's no post game content. There's no action really at all throughout the vast majority of the game, or pretty much throughout the entire playthrough. There's no combat system at all. There's no combat. It's just a very straightforward, generic AAA experience. It's a very weak AAA experience. As an Xbox exclusive, like, if this is the best that Microsoft can churn out, they're in trouble because Sony has them beat when it comes to exclusives, and this type of game is just not worth going out and spending $500 on a console that doesn't have any games to play. Trust me, this is a game that I was looking forward to for quite some time. And to make it even worse, the game's it's not even that long. It's like, a lot of people were saying this like around 8 to 10 hours. This fucking game is not no goddamn 8 to 10 hours. Unless you're just an idiot and you can't figure out one of the simple puzzles that's in the game. This is, I beat this game at around 7 hours long. If I add up all the gameplay footage that I recorded for this, and I recorded my entire playthrough for this, I wouldn't say it's a bad game, because there are, this type of thing, it does have a specific target audience, and there are people out there that are definitely going to enjoy this and just appreciate it for what it is. But for me, yeah, this is just there's nothing special about this. It's a pretty mediocre game. It's not a very good horror game. As just a narrative driven game, there's just not enough interaction there to be profoundly invested into what's happening. And even like the whole gimmick of the, when the game will go split screen, and this Marianne character will be like, she'll have her spirit or whatever in the spirit world, and then you'll still be in the material world, as they call it in this game. It looks like you're playing two different levels. All of that shit is scripted. All of it's scripted. You can't trigger it on your own. Yeah, they incorporate it here and there in the puzzles, but again, because of how simple the puzzles are, how easy the puzzles are, how brain dead the puzzles are, that gimmick really doesn't help elevate the game's quality really at any point. And so, all in all, the medium is it's just weak. It's good for one playthrough, and that's it. After you beat it one time, that's it. It's a one and done game. It's similar to the Order 1886, when that game was released as a PlayStation 4 exclusive during the beginning of that particular console's lifespan. There's just there's nothing special about this at all. It is what it is. I can tell Bloober Team, a lot of passion and love and, attention to detail went into this game. But yeah, when it comes to the gameplay, it's boring. It really is. It's just boring. There's no sugarcoating it. So that was my experience with the medium. And the next game that I'm going to buy in 2020 is Persona 5 Strikers. Persona 5 Strikers, that comes out later this month in February. I'll give an update as to what else is coming out that I'm interested in, which is, at this point, is not much of anything. So I will make a video on that probably at some point. But for now, that's where I'm at when it comes to gaming in 2021.
You can't always save everyone, but if